welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation, along with
CJ Lou from the Fired Up with CJ show.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
If you've ever wanted more peace, happiness, or sanity in your life, then do we have the peaceful show for you. Today we'll talk about getting grounded, finding peace, and when necessary, how to be the eye of the storm. That plus we'll talk about white deer, lawn lunches, DeLorean time machines, and what to do when your kitties are in charge. And know it. So welcome back to the show, CJ. Are you ready to shine?
I am ready to shine. Woo!
Woohoo! All right, so
Kitty's in charge. I need to
yeah,
hear
so
that.
well, Jessica's away. She's been in the Philippines and Taiwan, and maybe we'll get into that in a minute. But the cats are our babies, and even when we have babies in the future, they'll still be our babies. However, I didn't understand quite their need and desire for love when I'm doing interviews. And typically, Jessica's in the office, and she's got the kitties with her, and I'm in the studio, and they stay with her during the interviews. And she's funny during interviews. Her natural state of beingness is to take a nap.
Wow.
So as soon as I
Fascinating.
go, "Hi everyone, welcome back,"
Wow, that is
and
fascinating.
so she goes to sleep, and the kitties sleep with her. No Jessica here, no nap time. Kitties, me on the mic, has produced some banging on the door to get in, some crying to get in, or if they join me in the studio, then some crying for attention or banging on the door to
When
get
they're in the
out.
studio. Oh gosh.
Yes, so either way, so it'll be interesting to see. It's typically, the brigade is led typically by Sir Meowsers. Lumi, he's been mostly quiet, but Sir Meowsers gets going. So I fed him well before the interview, of which he's gone on strike for various foods, and I've had to play this "what do I feed you" game because you're not going to train me to hand feed you.
Right.
He's come close. And then so I fed him before the show, and I only had a brief time to do it, but I took him out on the lawn, and we sat together for about 10 minutes, just enjoyed the sunshine, soaked it all up. He complained a little to come in, but I told him I'll take him back out. So I've given him some good resources to go on for us to do this talk here together.
I find the whole thing hilarious. I don't have animals, so I really don't know what the whole story is with animals, but I find the whole thing
They're
hilarious.
they're little kids. They're just as expressive as little kids. They have just as many needs as little kids, but they don't have opposable thumbs, which means their needs more often have to be met by you.
Or they could go out and hunt and do those kind of things, but you're not
When
going
on
to, yeah.
when he was on Maui, well, they were both rescued outdoor feral cats. But we were on Maui. He still had outdoor privileges and was hunter extraordinaire.
Yeah.
He had birds that there are stories to tell. Unfortunately, these poor birds would dive bomb him in the yard because like all the local birds knew about him. It was kind of sad.
Wow.
He would eat his fill. He never played with his food, and he would eat the birds whole. And then he would bring home birds for Lumi as well, or mice to assure that Lumi had enough good wild food as well.
Wow. And did Lumi eat them as well?
Lumi would eat the smallest mice, wouldn't know what to do with some of the other things that Meowsers brought home, and he brought home. Well, he once brought home a chucker. A chucker is the size of Meowsers. And he brought this bird home, and I'm like, oh, I am so sorry. Because every bird, if there was a chance of saving it, a chance of resuscitating it, I did these mad drives to the like a rescue shelter. I had birds stay with me in my hand overnight to see if they could make it.
Oh
I
man.
was able to save a few, and I tried. It is the natural cycle, and it's not like you can feed a vegetarian diet to cats.
Right.
But now he's inside, and it's more our responsibility because in Jersey, he's no longer an outdoor cat. And he's very happy with retirement overall. It's just the food selection choices that kind of bum him out on occasion.
Right, yeah. He wants actually the real wild thing. And he probably enjoys he probably there's a part of him probably enjoys hunting.
Oh, I'm sure of it. That still does. And when you get him playing with a string toy, his accuracy and power for a 12 or so pound kitty, unbelievable. So fast, so incredibly fast. And it'd be a good rainstorm on Maui, and you want your cats home and inside. He'd go out on the prowl because that's when he could find things at ground level more. And so when the weather gets bad here, he's like, meow,
Right, because he
let
wants
me
to
out.
go out. Wow, that's fascinating. Right, he could find things on ground level more when it's raining because more animals are out, or what?
More animals are hunkered down for shelter than flying out.
Oh, I see. So you can go and catch him.
Apparently, he did. He did in copious quantities.
What's this have to do with the theme of our show?
Not much at all.
So, what was this week like for you?
It's been a more peaceful week.
Yeah.
It has been a week that could be at a monumental pace, but I tend to flip the balance switch. And so the more that I'm pushed, the more I do everything I can not to push back, but to find some peace in the situation, to find a way to be the eye of the storm. I joked about at the beginning lawn lunches. I'm taking more opportunities to grab my meal, not go back to the computer, literally plant myself on the grass, be present with the food, no brainstorming, no coming up with ideas of what we're going to do. Be with the food, enjoy each bite, take the time with it. Each piece of the puzzle that I'm doing to put more of a pause, to put more of a breath in there, has really been helpful and restorative to where I've made it through Friday now, and Jessica comes back only 77 hours from now, not that I'm counting, and I'm making it and doing it, and so that's been great. And we'll still have some good challenges on our hand, but I'm trying to treat myself in all the busyness that gets to get done right now with so much love and care and compassion, and pat myself on the shoulder and say it's going to be all right, it's going to be good, and just bring as much peace to it as I possibly can.
That's great. I last week, yesterday, I just got back from Philly, so I did this training in Philadelphia, and I had gotten feedback from the two previous trainings that people needed to have more specific, identifiable outcomes, so they didn't really know exactly what they were supposed to do after this training. So then I swung way over on the other end of the pendulum, like giving them prescriptive formulas. Because some people just need that, and some people don't want that. But for the people who want it, they really appreciate it. For people who don't want it, they feel like, what are you telling me I have to do everything? But I spent a good portion of last week just writing these prescriptions, almost of like, here's how you execute and roll out this particular program. Um, so it was interesting because I worked really hard last week, all through, like, when I hung up the phone with you last Friday, all the way till up until Thursday, probably Wednesday when I gave the presentation. And it felt good. And the only thing is, I don't know if I was at that peaceful point. I'm not sure if I was quite there, but I did make time. Like, a friend of mine was in town, and I made time. Like, you know what? I'm just going to make time to do this. I know I
Yay.
don't have the time in my mind, but I'm going to make time to do this, and it will get done. All the other parts of my life will adjust, and they did.
I'm so glad you did that because there is that balance. Certainly, we can go to the island side of things, which having spent years on Maui, you can have too many of those opportunities come up, and then nothing gets done. But
Right.
within a certain amount of reason, you're always going to take whatever time you have. So if you have less time, but you took some time for TLC and being out with others and community, what they call on Maui or Hawaii, ohana, that family time with others, that's a powerful recharger.
Right. Yeah. And I probably could have taken more, but I did what I could, and it worked out okay. But I was tired. I mean, it's funny because if I were to notice anything about my tendencies that I'm now kind of just contemplating, is the desire that more is more versus less is more. Like, I was trying to fit too much in a short period of time. And I think that that's it's an attitude that we have, like more is more. But actually, sometimes less is more. That would be
So,
my
and
one
by more
critique
is
of
more,
myself.
you're saying more is better.
Yeah. Yeah, more is better. But really, sometimes, especially when you're learning, less is more. I've been doing Feldenkrais, and they just focus on one thing, one small thing. And they just have you focus on that for the whole week. Like maybe like turning, like pushing down with my foot and twisting my body, when I'm walking. So it's like I have my uh, when I'm walking, the motion comes from pressing down with my foot, coming up to my hip, and twisting my head. So it's this kind of connected, integrated movement. And so they'll just work on one small thing, and you'll work on it the whole week, and less is more. And it's so different than the PT that I'm seeing. I have like 4 or 5 different exercises, and he keeps on switching them up week after week. And I like them both. It's just very different kinds of ways of interacting with other people, right? And your body and life.
It's interesting. It kind of segues with I was working on our book this morning, and I'm putting an hour or two in every morning, see if I can get a book out for the holidays right now.
Right.
And I was talking about being 1% better today than you were yesterday. And I'm not the first person to mention that concept by far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I said, if not even 1%, just a fractional amount better, just on one thing. Because 1% over 70 days is 100% difference.
Right. Right.
Over 100 days is almost 3 times better,
Mm-hmm.
300%.
Mm-hmm.
Over a year is almost 40 times better just by
Mm-hmm.
taking a fractional amount. So focus on that one item to me and just get that a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. Then you can add the next item. I think back to swimming, kind of like your PT. And whether I'm coaching or someone else was coaching me, if you've got one thing to work on, like your walk, we're just going to work on bringing the elbow out
Yeah,
of the
just one
water.
thing. One at a
That's
just that one thing. Don't work on like 10 things, just one thing.
exactly.
And my
Well, if you
PT
work
is just
on,
to be fair, he is just working on one thing, my hip. That's it. Hip.
I like it because if you work in swimming, if you take, I'm going to work on the elbow, then I'm going to work on extending the arm, then I want to make sure my chest is down, and then all of a sudden you can't even stay afloat
Right.
because you've got too many of them going on at once. So you
Right.
take that one thing and then tiny little things, which bring you back to the topic today. If you're being overwhelmed, that one thing to work on may be, all right, stuff's going down. I got to deal with it. Maybe let's see if I can just be a tiny bit better, just a fractional amount better
Yeah, can
today
I
than
be more
yesterday.
calm? Like, can I be more calm
Bingo.
next time? And I actually, the interesting thing, because I've gone through 3 revisions of these PowerPoints that I've been delivering them. I get feedback. I'm like, okay, here's how I could make it a little bit better. Then I'm like tweaking it. Then I'm delivering them and getting feedback, and I'm like tweaking them yet again. And so, but each time I've been doing, like the first time, I would say, um, and it's hard because the first time you're just laying down the framework of like, what's the interesting thing that I could say that would really drive this point home. And so that was kind of the emphasis on the first set of slides. But it was kind of like this striving, like this, kind of, when you're kind of going through brainstorming and it's kind of like this push it's like almost like a creative push. I don't know if you had that same thing, like when you're creating you're
I
creating a
go,
bunch of things now. Do you have that creative push or what
if
happens
I
to you?
push, it squashes.
Really?
So it's like trying to, I don't know, push a bug or some delicate thing where if you push it, you're going to crush it. And so if I go, I need to write right now, I need to get something out, I need to get down on paper, my flame goes away.
Wow,
And
that's fascinating.
either I can't write at all, or what comes out, I will think is decent at the time, and then I really need to scrap and do again because it will be more rambly. It will kind of be forced, less congruent. And so I can tell very quickly, oh, wait, we're trying to push this to get through right now.
Mm.
We're going to have to step back from it and figure out then there's always cycles of time throughout the day for each of us. And if I can sync back up in that cycle where the words are flowing more rather than trying to do it when I'm kind of off axis or out of sync with the gears.
Interesting. Wow, that's interesting. Well, what I do is I meditate beforehand. If I'm doing a creative thing, I
Perfect.
kind of meditate so that my mind is clear. And then sometimes if I'm writing, I just kind of like write from a different place and then edit it. So that's one if I'm writing. And for this case, I was like, how do I land? I have a whole bunch of information that could be used in a really interesting way. I just don't know. It's almost like a collage. You have all these
Mhm.
pictures all around, and you're not really sure exactly how they fit together. And you're really not going to know until you start gluing them and seeing where they all fit together. And so that's my process, creative process for that kind of thing. For writing, I just kind of like just get super empty and then say whatever creative force that's in there just take over.
I
But
like
for
it.
this for the PowerPoint, which is inherently collagish, right? Like when you do a PowerPoint, it's a bunch of different pieces of information and you're trying to figure out how to a collage or quilt, you're like trying to figure out how all the different pieces fit together. And so just like with probably a collage or quilt, you take one piece and you're like, oh, okay. Wait, let me take another piece. Like, oh, okay. Oh, interesting. If I arrange it this way, it looks like,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. And so my creative process was much more about fitting all the little pieces together in a collage. And then what I do is I take a break, I go meditate, and I'm like, what is it that I'm not seeing of this, or what's the big picture that I'm
Awesome.
not seeing? And then I go back and go, okay, and then I like kind of rearrange the pieces again, and then I won't know. Then I kind of have like a collage that I'm designing for someone else, really, to make sure that it hits their needs, and then I'll deliver to them, and then they'll say, well, I'll see how they're reacting to the collage, and like, oh, if I did this, then maybe that would help their interaction with the collage. And so just kind of tweaking and tweaking, like, adding like a bedazzling to it, or whatever I need to do to the collage so that the kind of the salient things that are important to them show up. But it's interesting, but because that whole process I think could be filled with stress. When I'm the most conscious about it and I take breaks, I have much better results. When I have the meditation break or I take a walk in between or I meet a friend for lunch, like that's when I get better results, I think.
I think that you just hit a very key point is the music is the pause between the notes.
Right.
When you put that in there, the ideas come, things gel, and there is a certain flow to it that takes place. I'm going to have to do actually the same thing. You're talking about a collage. I have these different chapters, and I have both a loose outline for the book, but I've written this book very differently than I've written any of the past. So a lot
Mm.
of the pieces can stand on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They're shorter, they're sweeter, easier to digest. You can pick up the book anywhere. So I'm going to get that process in about a week or so of the collage building
Yeah,
of
like
which piece
yeah.
fits in where. So that'll be exciting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
And you're right, I will probably put the pieces down and then step away from it. And I really like stepping away from things. I
Yeah.
throw myself out. I have a rule, even if I'm not running or something in the morning, by 8:30 I'm out, which means by 8:30 I've thrown myself outside for a walk, for a run, to the gym,
You've
for
done
a
something to
crawl.
be out.
I'm out. So this morning 8:30 hit, I was in the writing zone. I'm like, sorry, out the door.
Wow, interesting.
And doing that, instead of snuffing the creative process, it again builds that pause. And then more of it comes back out when you get in, unless, as it happened, I think it was yesterday morning, and I was just laughing at the universe who was laughing at me. All the mowers and the blowers and the instruments of fall destruction show up outside your door.
And you're trying to write when that happened.
And you're going, this just ain't happening.
Right. The universe is conspiring against whatever it is that you're trying to do, so just give up. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like just take it like the universe is saying, nope, not the right time. So
denied.
did I
And it's okay. That's the big thing is you have to say it's okay. I really want this to get done today, but it's okay. And I realize sometimes bosses' deadlines, there are times and places where you're just going to have to find your way through with earplugs, with tears, whatever it is. But if it isn't that real hard and fast deadline, don't force it. I call it on the bike ride. I may have talked to you about this. I learned this on my 5,000 mile ride across the country years ago. I call something the shred zone.
mm-hmm.
The shred zone is where you get exhausted or fatigued. You've only got a few miles left on your ride. You've already put in 100, 150. My longest dates were 200 miles. And you can I would call it an infinite amount of damage in a very finite period of time.
Yep.
you fall apart in the last few miles, whether running, cycling, skating, whatever it is, and all of a sudden everything's moving out of sync and you tear yourself apart. And that's what we want to avoid. When the going gets tough and the stress level comes up, you want to make sure you're not working in the shred zone, because you're doing damage to your psyche that's going to take days, weeks, months, or years literally to repair by forcing yourself through.
And I think
you scar yourself.
Well, it's funny because I on the second time I did this PowerPoint, I wasn't sure of the timing because I had changes. I actually had, of course, like I had this whole thing planned out. Like I could have just done the module that was in the class, like as designed, and I would have known timing. I would have known everything. But I thought, no, I think I can improve on that. So, but when you do that, you really don't know the timing anymore. You don't know how long something takes. And you can practice it, but even that, it's hard to know what the actual timing is because people ask questions during class. And so I just thought I'm going to, and a way to compensate for this timing is I'm going to cut out the hour-and-a-half lunch that they usually recommend for people, because which is a long lunch, right? So I thought, well, I'm just going to, but it's actually important because it gives everyone a chance to recharge and digest. So it's important from a learning process. But
I'm very interested to see where you went by cutting out lunch.
Yeah, so
this is like taking out recess, CJ.
So I actually shortened lunch significantly from like an hour and a half to like 20 minutes. And at the end of the day, it was like 4 o'clock, and I literally hit that shred zone. I was reading through this PowerPoint, and so if I were to read what's in front of me, it's like that plus we'll talk about white deer. Like I couldn't even read what was on the slide. I couldn't pronounce things. I literally hit the shred zone. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I guess I've just pushed myself to a limit to deliver the most to you guys, and I can't even articulate these sentences." And it was luckily the last minute of there's maybe 3 more minutes, but I've never actually hit the shred zone when I was doing a PowerPoint before, but I hit it where I was like, I get back at that, just melted down. I want to actually bring up another point that you brought up, and I don't know if you brought it up or not intentionally, but I think that one of the things that I've noticed, so you brought up 2 different things, or one thing that brought up another thing for me. It's about sometimes the universe is conspiring against you. So you have this gigantic project, and there's the leaf blower and the lawnmower and all the stuff out of your room where you really want creative silence so that you can actually do, kind of have inspiration happen, and it just didn't happen. And I think that oftentimes life happens. There's stuff external to us that we can't control. So the reason why I had to work so hard on Monday and Tuesday is because my son was getting his college apps in, and he was, and he had some issues, like some of the technical things weren't working. And then he surprised us by bringing a friend home. Like he had all these things that I just wasn't expecting. Like the universe was conspiring against me so that it was like it was not time to do the other thing. And if you just go with it, it's so much easier. Because have you ever actually tried to push against it? Where you're like, oh, the universe is, and I'm going to keep on going.
At least one of my near-death experiences was the book tour gone bad.
Yeah.
Where every single thing kept going wrong. And I'm like, I trying to be a martyr. I will do this.
Right.
And bad idea.
Yeah, it's disastrous whenever you do that. I mean, for me, every time I push against it, like I was trying to retrieve a file, like I switched over to Windows, all these different things, and I was trying to like get this file, and then I realized, and I was trying to get that file because I'd spent so much time writing this file, that I realized that I spent more time getting the file than it would have taken for me to rewrite the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's when you're like, oh, I've just not listened to the universe at all.
And it's interesting because we say maybe that the universe isn't conspiring in our favor at those times, but it may actually be. It may be there's something to be gotten out of working with your son at this period, out of him having somebody else home, that if you can just take in that experience and go, it's not the experience I was looking for or would choose, but for some reason I'm given this experience now. For some reason I'm being given the lawnmowers. So I'm going to do some menial tasks that I know I can do while it sounds like there's a chainsaw outside of the studio. And then when I come back to it, maybe I'll have some new ideas. I'll have looked at things a different way, or I got that thing out of the way, and so now that's not on my mind.
Yeah, you
So it
don't
may
really
actually been
know, right? Like you don't know whether,
bingo.
yeah, you don't really know whether that was the universe's cue to say like, don't go try to do something creative because you need to get some, like you said, need to get some of this menial stuff out of the way. You just never know. So I think that one thing is when you're going through the creative process, one, I'm hearing do long lunches, take breaks, right?
Yes,
Then
yes,
I'm
yes.
also
And do
hearing,
lawn lunches if you can. Go
right,
sit on the earth,
right,
literally. Get outside, get grounded.
yep. I actually think before, midpoint, afterwards, like throughout the whole process, like I'm trying to build in a process where every hour I get up and move around and I connect back to my body in some way. It could be a stretch, it could be a meditation, it could be walking outside and getting coffee, like it could be anything, but like every hour moving around because otherwise I think it's like your creative process, your body, your mind, everything gets stagnant. I don't know.
Hmm.
So I think that I'm hearing taking breaks and kind of getting back because I think especially when you're doing the kind of work that we're doing, it's in your mind, right? So your mind is like like thinking about creative ideas, organizing the PowerPoints, thinking how all the So if you just take that one, during that hour, it can be like a 3 minute stretch break. It doesn't have to be anything special or making time for lunch, right? Because I didn't and I got shredded. I was in the shred zone afterwards.
This is the second interview today. They're kind of back to back with a little breathing room in between.
Hmm.
And I'm going, there's not much food in the house. Do I have time to go out and get something? I guess I could. And I'm like, instead, let's see what there is in the fridge. Let's see what I can do with it. And I threw myself into this creative endeavor. I created, universe created through me, however you want to call it. It was a fantastic lunch. So I threw myself into this creative process. I'm up standing. I'm not at my desk. Then I sat on the lawn, took the cat out for a little bit, and I come back ready for the second interview, recharged.
Right,
I had stopped, I had let go, I had closed my mind, I had gotten moving, and I got in the creative
right.
process
Yeah.
in the little time that I had.
It's very counterintuitive, but it makes you more creative, more productive to take those breaks in between. And then I heard the second tip I'm getting is, watch the energy around you. Like the universe is trying to tell you something, and um, if you ignore it and try to fight against it, sometimes it actually works to your detriment in ways that you're not even anticipating, right? Almost to in a death scenario for you. I mean, not that's extreme, but
They're all, I view them, and it's a choice. You don't have to view it this way. I believe the universe is conspiring in our favor. I believe in the Einstein statement, is the world for you or against you? It is whichever you think it is.
hmm.
With that said, I believe if you fight against the flow, it's going to hurt. One way or the other, it's going to hurt. It's like trying to roll a giant boulder uphill.
Right,
At some point, you trip and the thing is going to squash you. With that said, when that boulder is coming back down the road, back down the hill after you, and you're running to get out of the way, you could actually turn in a new way that you never planned on to begin with that turns out to be better than the way you were going.
right. That's
Which
true.
means even if you go the quote unquote wrong way, in the long run, that can be the right way too. They all can lead to very special paths. It's that some are a heck of a lot easier than others. In this society, in a Western society, in a US type culture, we have these beliefs that we need to slay the dragon on our own. We
Right,
need to take the tough route. We need to be the martyr, the stoic, the
right.
hero. The hero in most stories gets crushed. You know, we don't need to be all by ourselves doing it the hard way to be successful, for one.
Right.
Secondly, life isn't about the goal, because when you get the goal, it's something Tom Sterner, we had on the show last week, a book, beautiful book, Fully Engaged on the Practiced Mind. He talks about, and then what? Well, I want to slay the dragon. And then what? Well, I want to rescue the princess. And then what? Well, I want to get married. And then what? I want to have kids. And then what? I want her to go to college. And then what? And then what? And then what? If you keep focused on that external goal, no matter how easy or difficult it is, you never get there,
Hmm.
because there's always the next thing. If instead you enjoy the moment, and it's much easier to enjoy the moment
Hmm.
if you're not pushing the boulder uphill.
Hmm.
If instead you enjoy the moment, life a lot of the times can be either truly blissful or at least acceptable.
Right.
In those hardest moments, okay, it's hard to say, poop is falling out of the sky left and right. This is bliss. Life is grand.
Right.
You could, there are ways to do that. But if you can at least appreciate the exact moment rather than worrying about the outcome, you get through that time.
That's interesting because I was just talking to my girlfriend. I thought, I can't figure out what happened with these slides. Did my ego run amok, or did I do this? Was I responding to the universe? I literally have no idea, because whether they like the slides or not, whether they like me or not, I think I can honestly say I don't care. I'm just trying
You
to.
did what you could.
I did what I could, and I'm just responding to what I sense is like the need that was arising, that was presenting at the time. Like, I got feedback, and it was pretty clear that the universe was saying, hey, you need to make it simpler for people to execute on this. So was I doing it from an egoic place or from a responding place? I don't know. And could I have done it in half the amount of time? I don't know if I could have. And is it ego that was driving me, or was it spirit? Don't know. I literally can't tell.
What if it just was?
Yeah.
To say it was ego or spirit is placing a judgment on it.
Yeah.
If you did, based on the fact set that you had, the time that you did what you could. It's just an is, which means it was perfect just as it was. And you learned something from it, and you learned about what not to do, and you learned some of what to do.
Right.
So in that sense, you did great. You did perfect. You couldn't have done, once the past is gone, you couldn't have done any other, because you took the information you had at the time.
Right.
And you did the best you could with it.
Right. I kept on responding to what, it's like if I was on the dialogue with the universe, being the people in the workshop, I kept on listening. I'm like, what's missing? What's missing? How am I going to respond? Yeah. It's interesting. I think it is better. I think you're pointing out a really important point, which is, why does it matter? Why does it matter?
It's just an is.
Yeah, and if there was joy, and I actually can say that there are moments of joy where I'm like, yes, this is really good. Like, this is good, useful information. Like, I'm getting something out of it, no matter whether anyone else is getting something out of it. I'm seeing this potentiality that I didn't see in this information, and I'm really teasing it out to, like, the maximum capacity, and that felt fun for me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
We talk about kitty cats. A few years ago, we had this very, very, very special cat. His name was Bam Bam. He had a curly Q corkscrew tail. We thought when we first got him, he was a rescue. He found us the first week on Maui. We thought he had been, injured by a car or something. Turns out he's a Japanese bobtail. He's the kind of kitty. He's the male version of Hello Kitty. Or the cats that you see in every Chinese place with a little arm going forward.
Yeah. Oh, I love those cats.
That's very regal. He had that breed has more tones than any other cat, so it can almost formulate words. It's pretty wild how many different sounds they can make, and so near, so precious to both of us. He would sun gaze with me in the evening. I could thump him on his side and do this, hey, to his Native American chant, using him as the drum. And we were just sidekicks. And he loved Jessica even more. And we had this sense that we needed to move from Maui. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't moved from Maui yet. And this was after the accident had taken place, and our kind of heads were still reeling. What do we do? And we got into this. Jessica's this wonderkind at fermenting foods and doing all this crazy magical stuff with food. And so we accidentally tripped into a kombucha business. And so we're selling kombucha at the local farmers market. Her idea of kombucha it was like beyond gourmet kombucha. We're talking using vanilla beans to create what do you call it for winter? Eggnog, Christmas eggnog kombucha.
Wow.
And apple cider pie kombucha, and all these amazing, incredible flavors. So we're feeling like we need to leave Maui. We're doing this farmers market once a week. We love our kitty very much. They pave a new road by our house, and He was pretty smart with the roads, but we were nervous about it at the same time. And there was one morning, several things happened. I don't know. We didn't want to go to the farmer's market. I had been tearing up inside, going, this doesn't feel right. This isn't really our path. We went to the farmer's market. We came back. He was bam, bam, no more.
Oh no, what happened? He got hit by a
Uh,
car or?
my best guess is actually he got kicked by a neighbor's horse
Oh,
and he had passed away. And to say it was traumatic is an understatement.
yeah,
And we all go through this, but we're like, it didn't have to happen. We could have moved. We didn't have to be on this road. We didn't have to be out this morning. And I just ground us both to a halt.
right,
And I said, no, we cannot go that way. We made the decisions that we did. This is where we at. It's just an is. To go down the road of woulda, shoulda, coulda
mm-hmm.
when you're in a point of grieving or bereavement would tear us apart.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't go there.
Right,
And I believe that about everything. We can learn from the past so
right,
that we do things differently. But to put judgment on ourselves for anything that we've done is truly insanity making because there is no positive that can come out of saying, well, you did it for this reason,
right.
or you shouldn't have done it for that reason. There's nothing that can be gained from that. And so that one I know would have completely shredded us and would have just torn me apart with guilt and who knows what if I had gone down that road.
Right. I shouldn't have been selling kombucha. I shouldn't have. I kind of had a bad feeling. I did whatever. It is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, as a result of that happening, what changed? Did you continue selling kombucha? You left. Like, what happened after that?
We sold kombucha for another couple weeks, and then we stopped selling kombucha. We got into our mindful running program, which we'd been working on, which was a beautiful endeavor, but also was pushing a stone uphill. And it took us about another, we didn't know Jessica was sick at the time. We didn't know what was going on with her, that her energy levels were down, that she was having to sleep all the time, that she wasn't thinking clearly, that she was fuzzy brained, and that she seemed pretty depressed. It was actually mold, an inch
Mm-hmm.
thick carpet of mold growing in the house and the rafters we just didn't know about. So in a sense, Bammy was trying to get us out. And we almost boomeranged off the island at that point before we tried to hang in there.
Oh.
We're, we're slow. We're slow. We were slow to take action. I would say a lot of good came out of it. I would say that Lumi, who's now in our lives, he wouldn't have appeared. He came out of it. We got another cat who also passed away early. When we got to New Jersey, he only lasted a few more months here before
Wow.
he passed away one morning after breakfast, just gone in a heartbeat.
Wow.
But he was a gift to be in our lives. There's so many pieces that occurred because of that, that while I can say, Bammy was really trying to get us off the island, we didn't listen, he passed away, we still didn't listen, yada, yada, yada. Instead of that, I look at all the blessings that have come from it. And this show exists because of the interviews I did accidentally to put together our mindful running program. I just did a
Right.
couple interviews, which turned into a series of 40 interviews. I loved it so much.
Right.
That would have never appeared. So if we look at the timeline in reverse, truly each of these pieces has a valuable component to it. Now, if you've lost a child, if you've lost a loved one, I'm not going to go, everything happens in life for a reason, say hurrah
Right.
that happened. That's insane. With that said, we can make special things out of whatever we're given.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where we've come from it has been great. So I really wouldn't want to go back and kick myself. The first few
No,
months
it's
we
like they're
left Maui.
stepping. Yeah, they sound like stepping stones. Like they're stepping stones that, if those stepping stones weren't there, wouldn't lead you to the path that you're on right now. For sure, right? I
Bingo.
mean, right? So, and you don't know at the time, it feels awful, right? But in in retrospect, you can look back at that event. And when did Bam Bam die?
He died 2 years ago on 3 years ago on solstice.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So just coming up on 3 years. I'll share another story with you. We have a bad connection. If it doesn't clear in a minute, I'll have you call back.
Okay.
We'll see if it comes back. But I'll share another story that I haven't shared, I don't believe, on air before, um, but is an example of this, which is when we put out Barefoot Running, we put out the book Barefoot Running, we became a bestseller with it. We worked our tails off,
Mm-hmm.
became an indie bestseller. And when we were struggling with distribution rights and what do we do here and there, and we had some real challenges with Amazon, which is certainly the 800 or 2,000 or 20,000 pound gorilla,
Mm-hmm.
we're like, we're going to need to find a regular publisher. We're too
Right.
big to do this on our own now.
Wow.
And actually, we got too successful with the Kindle of all things, and that created some ripples within Amazon. So we're like, how do we do this, and how do we do this quickly?
Mm-hmm.
And things aligned and conspired in our favor. We got one of the top agents in the country who wanted to represent us,
Mm-hmm.
who's represented one of the top authors of ever,
Mm-hmm.
and then we found another agent who we resonated even more with,
Wow.
and we went on heart and went with that second agent. She got us, in no time flat, a 10 publishing houses vying for and in a bidding war for our books.
Wow.
10 publishing houses at once. Now, there was one particular publishing house that I wanted above and beyond anybody in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted Hay House.
Right.
I wanted Hay House. I wanted Hay House. I wanted Hay House. And they wanted us.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of the bidding war, it was Hay House.
Wow.
And then one of the publishing houses violated its own internal rules and bid against itself
Wow.
and swooped in with a last minute offer that was significantly better on paper than Hay House. And on top of that, we spoke with Hay House on the phone and spoke with the marketing director. She was probably a really busy day,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of a flat, neutral phone call.
Right.
We spoke with the Random House team,
Right.
and they had 10 people around a boardroom saying, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, we're going to do the other. And I had another book out years before with a traditional publisher that hadn't gone well. So I understand that they can promise things and not deliver on them.
Right.
But the energy was so
Boy, they were so
completely
excited.
different.
Yeah.
They were so excited that I'm going, what do we do? What do we do? Do I go the publisher of my dreams? Wayne Dyer is personally interested in this. I'll be able to speak on the You Can Do It tour.
Right.
Oh my God, that's amazing. But they don't really have a marketing strategy. They seem more excited about the second book. The first book, they're kind of about. I'm not feeling the energy. Random House, over the top excited, really gung-ho for this. The amount of dollars extra that they're going to pay, oh my God, what do we do? And we were on book tour. I think we were back on book tour at the time. Things are moving quickly, but we felt in our hearts that we were supposed to go with Random House.
Mm-hmm.
And so we chose Random House, and they did the best they could, but they fumbled the handoff from indie bestseller to their own. And the book crashed on Amazon through the floor.
Oh my God.
Book publishing works on momentum. We lost momentum for book number one. They were completely deflated and didn't put the push into book number two.
Oh, wow.
Because to them, it probably was a dollars and cents thing. We already lost money on book number one. If we work hard on book number two, the momentum's not there. It's not going to do well.
Wow.
And it went nowhere. That's when I ended up out on the book tour, going to slay the dragons myself,
Wow.
so forth and so on. The amount of kicking that I did for myself over a year or two period, I tore, this was pre-Bammy passing, I just tore myself apart. How could you be so stupid? How could you have done this?
Wow.
This was your life dream. Wayne Dyer, you spoke about it because I was listening to a Wayne Dyer audiobook moments before my first near-death experience. He is so in my heart and has been such a guide and beacon of light. And he wanted me to speak with him. I'm like, how could you have turned that down? And I really tore myself apart. Then things like being, well, first off, the second near-death experience, that kind of snapped me back into this place of you are loved, you are loved, it's all okay, it's all perfect as it should be. It was kind of that moment when you come out of that experience, even though you can slip back because you're wiring, how's the expression go? Neurons that fire together, wire together.
Yeah.
You can have any aha moment, blissful experience, near-death experience you want, but you still got the wiring to deal with.
Right.
And so I could have gone back there, but I slowly started pulling myself out of that muck and that mire. And then I finally, at some point, let it go. It may have been more recently than I care to admit. It may have been when we started this show that I finally was able to let it go. I know this. Had I gone on tour then, everything could have been great. Who knows?
Right.
But I would have been speaking about barefoot running, barefoot walking, connecting to the earth, getting grounded, beautiful stuff. Maybe even have incorporated some of the mindfulness in there, which became the mindfulness program. I don't think I'd be nearly where I am today.
Right.
I don't think I would have the breadth or depth that I have to talk about anything.
Right.
I think I probably would have been more in people's shadows.
Right.
And I wouldn't have had the growth and development. So there's still a part of me in that wiring that it stings.
Right.
So what?
Right.
I am ever grateful for where I am now and the path that has taken me on. So when I go, why did you do that, Michael? How could you have been so stupid? How could you have made that decision? Well, the is about it is, I did the best I could with the information I had at the time.
Right.
And thank God I did, because this show literally would not exist had I chosen the other way around.
Yeah, I love that. I think the other thing I'm hearing is also, I bet that your decisions are more heart-based than head-based as a result of that. And I know, yeah, because when I hear you're like, yeah, my heart just wasn't, so it's kind of a huge way of navigating around decisions that's completely different than probably you would have probably that burn and that pain of voting against your heart towards your head. I think that's what I'm hearing too, probably significantly changed you.
You called it. You called it. You called it.
Yeah, yeah. So, and sometimes it has to hurt that incredibly bad for you to go, nope, not doing that again.
Let's go for a new mistake this time.
Exactly. All right, I want to ask you about white deer and DeLorean time machines. We haven't covered those two things.
Yeah, so it was earlier this week. I just done a beautiful interview. I think it was the day before, with a gentleman who is a shaman, and talking about our connection to the real world, connection to the natural world, connection to the trees, to the animals. And the next morning, out of the corner of my eye, Kitty jumps up, Lumi jumps up on the desk here in the studio, looks out the window, and I see something just out of the absolute corner of my eye. And I'm like, camera! I'm like, where's the camera? Can't find the camera. Where's the SD card? Need the SD card battery? And I finally get outside, and even me getting outside startled them. There were some deer, and they headed down the street. And so I just went to a place of gratitude, went to a place of silence, and I walked gently behind them, speaking to them. And among this group of 7 deer, and then there was a buck who came out at the end, was a white deer.
What?
We have seen a white deer once before, so that we Googled them. We found out they're exceptionally rare, but they do exist.
Is it like an albino deer, or is it?
There are albino deer, and then I won't get the word for it's white with brown patches, which is what this was, kind of deer. The Native American revere them as being not just spirit in living form. They're a sign and symbol of life and transition. if you were to hunt or kill the deer at that time, you would literally kill the spirit because it's so fragile and precious at that moment. And so it wouldn't return to source, so that they were not hunted. There's even still a taboo. Most hunters wouldn't think in their life of shooting a white deer because it's rare and precious and because of the spiritual significance. And I got some cool photos. We spent some time staring at each other, ears up, just
Oh my
looking
God!
at
Is it
me.
on your Facebook page? Where are these photos?
I'll put it on the Facebook page because
Will you tag
and
me? I want to see it. I can't
I'll
wait
do
to
that.
see
If
it.
anything, I zoomed in a little too close, so some of them are a little, I wouldn't
Fuzzy?
say grainy. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not perfect images, but they do a perfect job at showing white deer.
Wow. So it's
It's
about life in transition. So isn't that a perfect kind of spirit animal to come your way after your conversation with that guy? I mean, that's
yeah,
like a blessing.
a total blessing. And what I have to remember to do now is to connect in meditation to kind of
The
deer
white deer,
totem,
yeah.
white deer totem, because I think it has some powerful messages that she's trying to tell me. So she came out,
Wow.
she romped around, and then she headed off. This beautiful young buck. He's got all the points on him, and the antlers are coming in, and he is staring at me for a while too.
Wow.
And we just kind of shared a moment. So that was just really
Very cool.
cool, and reminding me how no matter what's going on, stay connected to the natural world, stay
Yeah.
connected to the outdoors is
Beautiful.
so important.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.